Karen Holton TV presents the Aliens and Angels podcast. Meet experiencers, contactees, abductees, ET human hybrids, and more weird paranormal states of reality. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Aliens and Angels, the podcast. Today, I want you to meet my returning guest, Jan Hann, also known as Janet Fitzpatrick. Jan Hann was born in Hampshire, UK, and was self-employed and working for magazines such as Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, newspapers, etc., and at the same time was employed by Ladybird as a children's coat designer, Rona Roy, women's dresses as a fashion illustrator, Just Jane maternity wear as a catalog illustrator. Lastly, she had her own haute couture boutique in Basingstoke. It was all about the material world. Jan wrote her first book about that life. It's called Knock the Door by Jan Hann on Amazon, which has gone global. Jan has since published her second book called Great Pyramids Initiation Ceremony and the Hall of Records, active today. Author and researcher Jan Hann joins us to discuss one of the most unusual consciousness events ever recorded, beginning with a sudden clunk click at the crown of her head, followed by the sensation of an invisible bird-like force lifting her into a dual state of awareness. Her journey leads straight to the Great Pyramid and into the heart of ancient initiation traditions. This is a scientific discovery conversation that you won't forget. All of the links are featured below. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm happy to announce that YouTube memberships are now available so that you can receive my perks and help to support my channel. Okay, without any further ado, let's bring on our guest. Jan, welcome to the Aliens and Angels podcast. I should say welcome back.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for having me for the second time regarding my book, and thank you everyone for listening. My name is Jan Hann then, and I am the author of the Great Pyramid Initiation Ceremony Hall of Records, active today. It's now available on Amazon in e-Kindle, ebook, and paperback format. So this is the paperback version.
Wonderful.
And the back as well. So, to start with, then, the introduction is that in my book, I describe a 3-year experience involving an ancient ceremony with various stages. The first part tells of serapins, then a clunk click and a roar, a dual embodiment, and a flight to the Great Pyramid. I am now researching the first part of this event to better understand it and find some truth in it. And this is what I have discovered. I find this, and I hope you will do as well, awesome and really exciting. Firstly, I need to tell you that we have 2 minds. I'm sure you probably know that really. We have one mind, which is the short-term memory. This one is the one that deals with the physical things, short-term things, and everything that's going on about you, around you. The other one is the so-called subconscious mind, and that is the long-term memory, such as dreams and things when we wake up in the morning, all those sort of things that's been happening in your sleep, emotions, etc., things that stay with you for a long time, which is also concerned, now I've discovered, with the universal collective consciousness. So I'm now going to tell you about this in 5 stages, which is really the 5 stages that started when I had this bizarre experience that just happened out of the blue. So what comes next is all about archetypes. So what are archetypes? When we talk about archetypes, we're talking about something ancient, universal, and deeply human. The etymology, or the word itself, archetype, comes from the Greek arche, which means beginning, origin, first cause. Then it's typos, means mark, impression, model, pattern. The word itself has 2 main meanings, which is the original pattern or model, pattern the first form from which others are copied. And the second meaning is a universal psychological pattern inherited collectively and present in every human mind. And this is the Jungian definition. But what does that actually mean for us? Well, it's one of the mind's universal blueprints, or another word for it is templates or pattern. Archetypes are not spirits, they're not entities or external beings. They are deep structures of the human mind, universal patterns or templates for thought, feeling, imagination, and symbolic imagery. They appear in dreams, myths, visions, religious symbols, art, and emotional experiences. They are shared psychologically, architecture of humanity. Where does the idea come from? Well, it comes from Carl Jung, who noted something remarkable. People from completely different cultures who have never met described the same dream motives, symbolic figures, mythic patterns, and emotional experiences. This led him to propose the collective unconscious, a shared layer of the human psyche. Well, archetypes are the building blocks of that layer. As Jung said, these patterns are not learned, they are inherited. Why do archetypes feel external? Well, this is the part that most people don't understand. Archetypes come from inside the mind. They can feel overwhelming and external, especially during times of stress, exhaustion, and uncertainty. The deeper mind doesn't speak in any language, it speaks imagery. So this is what we know, don't we, with the long-term memory, with our dreams and things. This is what I call the energy mind, the physical mind, the invisible mind, the long-term symbolic layer of consciousness. The first use is in English dates to the 1600s, making it the ideal archetype from which other versions are derived. Examples include the hero, the self-made leader, etc. All these appear in literature. They resonate because they are universal. So, for the core idea, which is short now and precise. Number one, we inherit biological patterns through DNA, instincts, and emotional responses. Second, we inherit psychological patterns through the collective unconscious, archetypes, symbols, mythic structures. And three, our personal life activates these patterns. When emotional stress or transformation aligns with an archetype, the imagery becomes vivid and powerful. This is natural and how our mind works. So how does this link with the experience? It means the symbols I experienced were not sent from the outside. They arose from the deepest layers of human psychology within the long-term memory. They are universal, not personal. They are part of how humans make meaning. They are built into our natural design. That's awesome, isn't it? The collective unconscious is not mystical. It is evolutionary psychology, the shared inheritance of the human mind. Now we're going to look at those stages that I mentioned in the first place, those stages in the experience, starting with the serapins. Serapins. Archetypes are universal symbolic patterns built into the human mind. They are psychological forces that express themselves through imagery. Serapin are one of these patterns, part of the collective unconscious we all inherit. They arise from within and not from without. Side. So with the serapins, with my experience, they came out of the blue in this field, and there were about half a dozen sets of them, eyes and with long necks, and they were in a cluster, and then they came at a rate which would be about 180 miles an hour and came across to where my car was going down, and they went all into a separate line, and then they came down the road with us, and then they went back into the center of the field, and they exploded with the red fiery explosion. So they appear apparently in Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, Judaism, Christianity, shamanic traditions, dreams, and visions. The root meaning of seraph is ancient. The Hebrew word saraf means to burn, to shine, fiery one. This root appears in Ugaritic texts, Akkadian inscriptions, Egyptian serpent fire symbolism, early Semitic languages. Long before the Bible, ancient cultures depicted beings that matched the serapin pattern. Ancient Egypt, it was around 3000 BCE. In Mesopotamia, it was around 2500 BCE. In Persia, around 2000 BCE. Canaanite religion, around 1800 BCE. And these beings are functionally identical to what they call the serapin. So a summary, across cultures and across time, human beings have imagined fiery winged luminous beings connected with transformation, purification, initiation, ascent, and protection. They are not literal beings, they are archetypes, deep symbolic patterns built into the human mind. And the experience aligns with this universal pattern with extraordinary precision. So what happened to me is in alignment with this universal pattern with extraordinary precision. The archetype itself may be 30,000 to 40,000 years old. Wow. Anthropologists suggest, or such as Mircea Eliade and David Lewis Williams, show that winged, fiery, and radiant beings, as well as bird-human hybrids, appear in Paleolithic cave art and shamanic traditions worldwide. These beings lift the soul, purify the initiate, guide ascent, appear in visions, and mark transformation. This is the same pattern as the seraphim. So the archetype may originate in Upper Paleolithic shamanic consciousness, 30,000, 40,000 years ago. Why does this matter for the experience? The encounter did not come from religion. It wasn't a doctrine. It wasn't a belief. It wasn't imagination or suggestion. It came from the deepest, oldest layer of human symbolic consciousness. That's awesome, isn't it? This is why the experience felt ancient, powerful, initiatory, and transformative. I had tapped into something older than any religion, something woven into the human psyche itself. It means that the long-term universal collective unconscious mind activated an archetype that humans have carried for tens of thousands of years. My body and mind were responding to something extremely powerful inside me. Seraphim belong to the same symbolic family as Egyptian beings, and this is the part that matters for the experience. Seraphim share structural features with Egyptian bird beings, the Ba, the Bennu bird, Horus, the phoenix Egyptian firelight beings. They are Egyptian guardians of thresholds, the beings who guard the gates of the Duat, the protectors of the king's ascent. So even though seraphim is a Hebrew word, the archetype is absolutely compatible with Egyptian initiation. It's the same symbolic system expressing itself through different cultural languages. Seraphims are beings of ascent and religion. In all traditions, seraphim and their equivalents appear when the subtle body activates. The psyche enters liminality. The soul prepares for the ascent. The old identity dissolves and the new identity forms. This is exactly what happens to the experiencer. The encounter with the seraphim was not religious, it was initiatory. The pre-assessment activation prepared me for the pyramid experience. And this is the same field described in the pyramid texts by Faulkner in 1969, Nadler, Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Texts, 2005, Assman's Death and Salvation in Ancient Egypt, 2005. The Serapins are beings of ascent. The pyramid is also an architecture of ascent. They belong to the same symbolic system. This is exactly how initiatory experiences unfold in Sufi mysticism, Jewish Merkava ascent, Christian mysticism, shamanic initiation. A being of fire or wings appears first, then the ascent, then the transformation. The experience follows this universal pattern with uncanny precision. That's awesome, isn't it? So, what is the real link? The pyramid experience was not caused by physical structures in Egypt, but by the activation of the same symbolic architecture or template within the consciousness. This is supported by Jung in 1968, Eliade in 1958, Nadler in 2005, Corbin in 1969.
Wow.
I just find that awesome. What do you think, Karen?
I think it's really awesome on several levels. First of all, it sure explains a lot. Second of all, when I had my paranormal experiences, it started with angelic contact. Now, for me, the way I interpret what happened was that they appeared as points of light with light flashing out the sides, making them look winged, having wings. It was after that, sort of an initiation, I suppose, that I ended up having more classical ET contact. But, so many people now are sending me videos where they're seeing these beautiful orbs that are orange and red and different colors, and they seem to be kind of undulating with energy. It's becoming more and more popular to the point where it's pretty hard to deny that this phenomenon is actually happening. But what I love about what you said is you went back to classical authors throughout, our what so-called modern day to show that this archetype has been well recognized for some time. And I just think that's absolutely fascinating. So I agree with you. It's an initiation. And I know it's made my life better and my world better because it's kind of helped me to recreate myself. Have you found that as well with yourself, Jan?
Absolutely. And the next part that gets even, you understand it more, especially if you've had one of these experiences. I think this is where we need to go back to the future because these things we seem to have forgotten. And when they happen, we don't know how to tell people because they think we're it needs to come into today. We need to bring it out into this era, which then we need to get everybody to understand what these crazy experiences really mean. and not just sort of like wash it off, but follow it through to see what it wants, to tell you. In fact, it's a transformation to widen your consciousness. Would you say that,
Yep.
Karen? Would you say that's happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My consciousness has been raised. And the beautiful thing about it is once our consciousness and awareness expand, they never go back. It's not like, exercise where if you stop doing it, you lose your muscle tone. It's not like that. It's with you for your whole life. And also we can see evidence of it manifested in the way our lives unfold before us. And it's really, I think, super important. And I'm all for becoming the change that we want to see in this world. And I think this is a darn good start on the whole thing. So I'm very excited that you put this out in your book, and now your paperback's available. And we didn't mention, I don't think at the beginning, these are available on Amazon, and also Jan's contact information is in the description below. So if you'd like to know more about it, that's fantastic. Really, really good news. Thank you.
That's okay. So I'm going to move on then, Karen, to
Okay.
point 3. And it does get more exciting. And I'm hoping that by saying this outwardly to people, that then if you've had these experiences, it might help you to understand what they are. And they will make you different. It's a transformation. And it's got to happen to us. We've got to understand it. It's time that we understood what really is going on when these things happen. So this is number point 3, which is the clunk, click, and the pounce. So when I say this to my family, they really begin to look away. But I am really glad that I've discovered some thing to cause for it. So it's called the clunk, click, which exactly what happened. It was like a clunk, click, as if something was landing on the top of my head, and then a pounce. Very frightening. So here it is. So what is the link between the soul, which is the bar, and the seraphim? Both the Egyptian bar and the seraphim are archetypal expressions of the same universal pattern, the human symbol of ascent, transformation, transition between states of being. The clunk, click was not caused by a literal link between seraphim and the bar. Yes, it felt like that because an archetype of ascent was already active within the experiencer, and the mind expressed it through powerful symbolic imagery. Number 1, the bar and the seraphim are the same archetypal pattern. They are both expressions of ascent, transition, transformation, and movement between states. So when the archetype activates, it can feel like two symbols meeting. The mind uses the strongest symbol available to express the inner shift. When the archetype of ascent was activated, the mind reached for the bar, which is the soul in motion, and the seraphim, which is the fiery winged transformation. These merged into a single symbolic experience. The clunk click sensation came from an internal archetype of ascent that was activated intensely. The mind expressed this through the symbolic forms of the bar and the seraphim. The seraphim imagery did not trigger the archetype. The archetype was already activating inside. The Serapin imagery was the first sign of that activation, not the cause. The clunk click was a physical reaction to an internal activation as the nervous system responded to a powerful inner shift. So the core answer is the Serapin imagery did not activate the archetype. The archetype was already activating, and the Serapin imagery was simply the first expression of that activation. Archetype activation begins before any imagery appears. Archetypes switch on because of what you're feeling or processing or transitioning through. Afterwards, the imagery appears. This is the true beginning of the process. The Serapin imagery was the first visible sign of the activation. When the archetype of ascent began to rise, the mind reached for the strongest symbolic form available. In this case, it was Serapin, fiery wing transformation, the bar, soul in motion, and ascent. These are two cultural expressions of the same archetypal pattern. So the imagery didn't cause the activation, it revealed it. The clunk click was the body reacting to the internal activation. The physical jolt was the nervous system responding to a sudden surge of the body reacts when the psyche is under strain. So the cleanest possible formulation for the theory is the archetype of ascent is activated internally. The Serapin imagery was the mind's symbolic expression of that activation. The physical sensations were the body's reaction to the inner shift. Now the soul is a symbolic experience of the deeper mind, the part of us that feels continuous, meaningful, emotional, and connected to something larger than the individual self. It is the felt sense of the long-term symbolic archetypal layer of the psyche. The soul is the deep mind's experience of itself. When people across cultures speak of the soul, they are describing the emotional core, the archetypal inheritance, the sense of inner continuity. This is the same layer I call the mind of the energy body. So we're talking about the invisible and the spiritual part of us. It feels ancient because it contains patterns, templates, much older than any one person.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. You've really gone in depth. Psychology, history of humanity, the Egyptians. Oh my gosh, you're a wealth of information. That's amazing. I'm just, it's so much information. I'm just processing it now as we speak.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you though. I know you've got more you would like to present.
You sorry, with your what?
I said I don't want to say too much because I know you've got in mind some information you want to present, and I want to make sure that I give you enough time. for
Oh,
that.
bless you. Thank you very much, Karen. I will say, I hope, it's very difficult to take in and very difficult, I find or found to accept that it was things inside because I saw them, but
Mm-hmm.
then in my experience later on, I actually feel Jesus was inside me in the King's
Mm-hmm.
Chamber. And then after a bit, it was projected into the room, and I knew that it had been projected from within to be outside in the room. It was a projection, that was come from within. So then looking at it those ways, that I can understand this much better. I still won't give
Mm-hmm.
up those UFO things, the serapins, which match exactly with the serapins with all the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, to me, they were definitely in the field, and I just can't seem to let go of that. But I've got a feeling there is more to this than meets the eye. This is just the onset of what we were beginning to understand about all these things that are happening. I think it's due to the new era that's been brought in that we've got to start understanding a new side of ourselves, which we haven't
Mm-hmm.
really understood. The ancients understood it, and now we need
Mm-hmm.
to bring back things that they knew that we didn't know about. So the next part is I find this one uncanny, really, but it's perfect to the way I felt. This is number 4, and this is called the dual embodiment. So that means, and this is a core meaning. So the dual embodiment describes a state in which a person is aware of, connected to, or expressing 2 identities, 2 levels of consciousness, or 2 modes of being simultaneously. Think of it as one person, 2 layers of self-active at the same time. This can be human self plus the higher self, present itself, plus ancestral self. So that means somebody that's in the present, but at the same time they seem to be watching or with the ancestors. And then there's a physical awareness, which is with the expanded awareness, and then the ordinary identity with the initiatory identity. And last one of all is called the personal consciousness, which is with the transpersonal consciousness. So dual embodiment often appears in a moment of heightened awareness and symbolic initiation, visionary experiences, deep meditation, near death, or threshold states. In these moments, a person may feel, I am myself, but I am also more than myself. So that goes with what happened in my experience, because I was separated in 2 parts. And the 2 parts were the physical part of me was just carrying on with today's life, doing all the chores and the children and
Mm-hmm.
about everyday things. But another part of me had been lifted out by these archetypes, or the templates in the stages of the template had been lifted out and was going to the flying, which is the next part, is to the Great Pyramid. And I was going through all these sequences that I never understood, but they were happening to me, and I felt them as well as I knew they were there. I was absolutely in 2 halves. The first, the physical part was really exhausted all the time, while the other side, which I call the spiritual side, the energy body, is the one that we can't see. This is what I think, is that it was doing all these other things to process, if you like, the template. So the dual embodiment in ancient and esoteric traditions, many traditions describe this state as Egyptian mysteries. The initiate becomes aware of the Ka, the life force, the Ba, the soul, the Aka, the transfigured self. Two or more aspects or active are active at once. In Edgar Sayce's readings, he often spoke of the earthly self, the soul itself, the spiritual self. And in fact, I think Edgar Cayce was the one that he also flew to the Great Pyramid of Giza. In mystical Christianity, the old self and the new self coexist during transformation. In shamanic traditions, the practitioner walks in the physical world and the spirit world simultaneously. So why does this term fit the experience? The experience deals with symbolic identity, ancestral memory, initiatory transformation, the seraphic encounter, the pyramid as a template for the awakening. A dual embodiment is the conscious experience of holding two identities, levels of awareness or modes of being at the same time. The human self and the expanded self co-present within a single moment of perception. The next part is flying, and this part...
It's probably my favorite part. I'm sure it will be my favorite part. Oh, do you have time for just one quick question from the audience, Jan?
Yes.
Okay, this is a question from Bridget. She
Yeah.
said, in your opinion, do you think ET are incapable of coming here to Earth physically at this time because of the weakening magnetic field? I used to feel ET's presence more strongly and would see craft in the 1990s and 2000s. I'm wondering if you're able to answer that for our audience.
So you're saying that is it possible that the ETs could come here in our reality? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think, let's have a look. I think she is saying yes.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are saying no, they can't come to Earth physically because of our weakened magnetic field. And she's wondering if maybe they are prevented from coming lately due to conditions, because she used to feel their presence much more strongly than she does now. I'm wondering if you're able to answer that. If you can't, don't worry about it.
No, I don't really, can't really answer really, because I have to think about it for a while, but maybe it does make sense, doesn't it? Maybe that they are sort of staying away, sort of just, they were very strong, weren't they, in the 80s and 90s. It was like as if it was like a whole session of them. Everybody seemed to be seeing them in the 80s and 90s. And then, yes, it has sort of worn off a bit. So maybe that's right, really. Maybe they're waiting when we can understand them better. Maybe it was just a show, like a flash, and now for us to get used to it and with it. And now they're beginning to unfold a little bit more, now we're getting an idea. Yes. The flying bit, though, is awesome. I mean, so many people say that they are flying. The initiation then begins with flight, the archetypal pattern. Across ancient cultures, the first stage of initiation is not descent, but it is ascent. The initiate is lifted, carried, or guided upward by a force that is both symbolic and experiential. This upward movement marks the moment when ordinary perception loosens and a second mode of awareness begins to operate. This is why so many initiation traditions begin with a bird, a winged being, a lifting wind, or a sudden vertical movement of consciousness. The upward motion is not metaphorical, it is structural. It signals that the initiate is entering a state in which the physical and subtle bodies begin to separate, not in a disassociative way, but in a dual embodiment way. The Egyptian Ba, the soul that flies. In ancient Egypt, the Ba was depicted as a human-headed bird. This was not artistic whimsy, it was a precise description of the mobile, perceptive, conscious aspect of the self that could leave the body while remaining connected to it. The Ba could travel between worlds, could witness events beyond physical perception, could ascend to the gods, could return to the body at will, remained tethered to the physical form through a subtle thread of identity. So this has to be still going on today as well. So this is exactly the structure of dual embodiment. The physical body remains grounded, the subtle body lifts, perceives, and moves. Both remain you, the experiencer, operating simultaneously. And that's exactly what happened during the experience with myself. And I'm sure that lots of other people have had this feeling, but have really not understood what's been going on. And this is why I think that, it is good to start thinking in these terms, really, to understand fully what the human being is really all about.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something missing, and that missing bit in our jigsaw is the bit where we feel that we're lost. I always feel lost, really. There's something missing, and I think it's this extra part of our consciousness that needs to be widened. And I think it's through these templates, patterns that are within us that are crying out, we are here to help you. If only you would understand us, get to grips with it. So anyway, I'm just like it now. There's coming up. So the Egyptians understood this as a natural human capacity. It's not a supernatural thing. It is, according to the Egyptians, they say that it's as a natural human capacity. It's part of humanity. It's part of our evolution, our process. We need to be transformed to move on to the next stage. That's really what I think it's all about in a nutshell. So the Egyptians, the flight appears in every initiatory tradition. The pattern repeats across cultures, shamanic traditions. The shaman spirit is carried by a bird, lifted by wings or transformed into a bird form. In mystery schools, the initiate rises through the air, elements before entering deeper chambers. In Christian mysticism, the soul ascends like a dove. In Greek initiation, the psyche, the soul, is literally named after a butterfly, a winged being. In Hermetic texts, the initiate takes wing and rises through the planetary spheres. In Egyptian rites, the Ba leaves the body and returns with knowledge. The universality of this motive suggests that flight is the experiential signature of the moment consciousness expands beyond its ordinary boundaries. The invisible bird as initiator. In the experience, the massive invisible bird that descended and lifted the awareness means that the experiencer encountered the same archetypal intelligence that ancient initiates described. It is not an animal, it is not imagination, it is a symbolic intelligence that appears in the form most suited to the human's nervous system, fast, winged, above, purposeful, and guiding. So, in conclusion, the initiation ceremonies were important because they helped humans navigate psychological transformation using symbolic environments that activated the deeper mind.
Wow, wonderful. I have a question for you, Jan. While you were presenting your information, I was wondering, the initiation, do you think it is similar or the same or different from things like out-of-body experiences, astral projection, near-death experiences? They all seem to fit what you're talking about, but I want to know what your take is. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, I will say to you, the reason I'm really excited, but I think this is opening Pandora's box. As I said to my Dora, I think we're going down another route now because, yes, I definitely agree with you, Karen. I do feel that this is, part of the initiation process. But because we don't understand what's happening, we probably sort of cut it short, and don't let the stage go on because we feel, have I gone crazy, or things like that. I could tell you lots of things here, but I must leave it. But it's a big subject, and yes, I think that definitely with if you say near-death experiences, I definitely felt whilst I was having my initiation ceremony take place, I could feel after the death part and then being risen up through the shaft, the well shaft, I could feel the sense, and especially in the Grand Gallery, going up to the King's Chamber, I could feel that I was part of a near-death experiencer that was going to meet angels and things, which I did actually, which Jesus was dressed in one part. He was with massive wings and like Saint Michael, they call it. But it definitely is part of it. It was a part of it, really. I could tell it was part of it there.
It's difficult to speak of these things because we weren't given education to form the concepts in our minds. We weren't given language to explain it. Those who have gone on to read, ancient manuscripts and studied, for years and years and years, get a glimpse of it all. Yeah. But I think nothing takes the place of when it actually happens. And it's very disorienting. It was for me because, first of all, there seems to be a fine line between angels and extraterrestrials. Maybe there's a lot of overlap there because the extraterrestrials that I met were transdimensional beings. And that is the way we've come to think of angels. And then again, like you said, our minds are like projectors. And even when we think we're seeing something, like I'm looking at you on the screen, what's really happening is inside my mind, I'm creating all of this. We don't really know what's out there. Plus, we're so limited in our physical senses, but it's only I have found through transforming those physical things into spiritual things that they started to make sense. Well, I know I've just said an awful lot, but basically, I'm just thinking that, we're not given the training that I think we should have. And we shouldn't have to go to religion for it. It should be a part of being human. Anyway, I just wondered what your thoughts are about that, Jan.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Absolutely. Where can we get the information from? Because it's all closed up, isn't it? It's like as if, they don't want to talk about it, but somebody's got to open the box, really. And I think it's people like you, Karen, because without people like you, Karen, then people like me can't talk to anybody about it. So I think that this is a new level. It's absolutely essential. I said to my daughters, if it weren't for podcasts and like Karen, then I would just have to go down the road to and hire the church's hall, and just hope somebody would come up and listen to it, and hopefully that nobody in the room would start a conversation about it being not right, or not true, and putting everybody off. It has to be positive, people, as I say, and that would just be a hall, and you have to journey there, and then go somewhere else, and it depends on the community whether they're willing to listen and think of a different perspective rather than just everything else, that's ordinary, whether you're going to get somewhere. So thank you very much, Karen. I'm really proud that I found you, and I'm really proud of you for all what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm really proud of you too, because it takes enormous dedication to put all of that into language and then put all of that into a book. And it seems like the editing never ends. And but you're right, it's through podcasts like this. So we're not just on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on X, we're on Telegram, we're on Odyssey. I'm part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, so it's going out on all the audio platforms, and we're reaching hundreds, maybe thousands of people, with these important messages. And I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing right now with my life, seriously. And I'm thrilled to bits that you've come back on the show, and I'm hoping you'll come back again in the future and talk more about it.
Yeah.
And tell people where they can find you, because they're going to want to find you, and they're going to want to see where they can get your book. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Jen, before we go?
I just want to say that you can get my book from Amazon. It's on there, the e-Kindle, is it? E-edition. And that is at £5.95 in English, UK sterling. And this one is there's about, there's quite a lot in it. This is the paperback, which I do, and it's got all the definitely things. What is the curious bag? UFOs in Herefordshire, which is Serapins, active today. The Great Pyramid is active today. We are 50% fish, because I came to find out where we come from and why we're here. and the Hall of Records discovered. And you who are listening to me now know where this mysterious Hall of Records really belongs. The template is inside all of us. And when the next part is going inside and doing the ceremony in the Great Pyramid, if you'd like to know that in these type of psychological terms, then it actually tells you and shows you that the structure and the sound is the things that is actually enhancing because it's mirroring these templates that you've got inside you, and they're helping to activate the two come together. I didn't have to go to the Great Pyramid. It was in my mind for some reason. It came in with one of the stages, and that's how the 2 and 2 got together. The last bits on here is that deciphering the hieroglyphs. This is making the hieroglyphs come to light, really. Sensory patterns inside us. Hieroglyphs? This seems there's a link there. Were they talking in hieroglyphs? Like patterns, templates? Passing the baton for what? And initiation ceremony and the mystery. At last, as I said to my daughters, I now understand why there's so many mysterious ceremonies that took place across the world, really. Why they were trying to create another, if you like, Great Pyramid in structure and sound. It's those things apparently that are around you that help bring in these templates. Crazy. I could go on.
Well, it's very, very interesting and very profound, and I think it's time that this information comes out to everybody. We're getting very close to closing time. I want to give a special thank you to Denise and also Bridget for their very generous donations today. I want to thank everybody who came. I didn't catch everyone in the beginning. Skywatch Signal and Mark DeCurious and so many more. Did I already say Skywatch Signal? I guess I did. Anchor Haven. So many of you have come to join us in the live today, and I want to thank you all very, very much for coming. Jan, I'm so thrilled to have had you back.
Yes.
I'm so glad to have you back, and I hope everybody gets your book and gets that deep, deep understanding that I think the world is finally ready for. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you to everyone watching the live. Thank you to everyone watching the replays, the audios. Bless you all very, very much. So I guess with that, we'll say bye-bye for today, and thank everybody so much for your love and for your support. And with that, we'll say bye-bye, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available on Amazon worldwide. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. The like button and leave me a comment, and please do share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you'll also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.